Okay, so let's solve the longest common prefix problem on LeetCode. What this question asks us to do is to write a function to find the longest common prefix amongst an array of strings, and if there is no common prefix, return an empty string. If we take a look at our first example, we have an array called stars which contains the strings flower, flow, and flight, and it returns an output of fl. That's because the longest common prefix, or the longest consecutive characters that match all the strings is fl. If we take a look at stars, again, if we take a look at the strings in stars, flower contains an f, flow contains an f, and flight contains an f. Flower contains an l, flow contains an l, flight contains an l. Flower contains an o, flow contains an o. However, flight does not contain an o. So our longest common prefix is fl, right? They all have fl, 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 and then where they actually diverge is at their third character, since this one has an o, this one has an o, and this one has an I. And example 2, real quick, none of them have any common prefix from the first letter, so there is no common prefix. Obviously, since it's a prefix, only it must start at the first character. So if none of the first characters match, then there is no common prefix. It can't be somewhere in the center. Okay, so the way we're gonna do to solve this is, first we're gonna just check if stars is null or it has a length of 0. Then we just want to return quotations. Since we're checking the length of an array, it's just dot length, not dot length in brackets. Now what we're gonna do next is we're gonna create a string output, which is what we're going to return, and initially it's going to be empty, which is going to be quotations, in case there is no common prefix amongst the input strings. Otherwise, every time there is a common character beginning from the first character, we're going to add that character into output. We'll take a look in just a moment how we're going to do that. So the first thing we're going to do after so the third thing actually what we're going to do is we're going to create an int called min length, and we're going, so the idea here is that I want to find the word or the string within our array which is the shortest in length, because in our for loop, once we write it, we're going to iterate through, in this example it's flow, we're going to iterate through the characters of the shortest word. Why do we want to do that? That's because imagine we had an example where it's flower, flow, and flows. All the characters are going to be the same, the common prefix, up until W, right? Because flower, flow, and flows. And then if we want to check the next, if we check the next letter, and if we want to check the next letter, we can't because we're already done with flow. We want all the words within the array to have the same common prefix. But since flow ended, we're checking, for example, E with a character that doesn't exist with S in the case of flows. And obviously, these aren't equal to each other. So we just want to stop here at the shortest word in the array. That's what our for loop iterates to, the shortest word in our array. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to first assume that our first word or string in the array is actually the shortest, and this doesn't have to be the case, but we're going to assume it, and then we're going to say for int I equals to 1, as long as I is less than stars dot length I plus plus. Why do we start at I equals 1, not I equals 0? Well, like I said, first I'm going to assume that the first word is the shortest in length. And like I said, this could or could not be the case. And I don't want to compare this word with itself. So instead, I'm going to compare it with the string at the next index, which is 1. So what are we going to do now? We're actually going to check if min length is greater than stars at I dot length, and stars at I will return a string, so we have to use the dot left method with brackets. If the length of the first word which we assumed is greater than the length of the next word, in this case it's flow, what do we want to do? Our min length is now going to be equal to that length. So stars at I dot length. What I'm saying is that initially we assume flower is the shortest word, and then we're checking if the next word, which is if the length of flower is greater than the next word, which is flow. If it is, then obviously flow is our shortest word, so we're gonna update min length to store the length of flow. And this is gonna work with any example. If flow is located in this index instead, or if we had a longer word, if we had the word shorter than flow at the third index, it's gonna update to be the length of that string. So now that we have the minimum length, we can actually begin with our code. Remember, I said we want to iterate through the characters of our shortest word. So int I equals to 0, I less than min length, I plus plus. We're going to create a character variable called current character or character whatever. That this is what we're going to be checking with the other words. You'll see what I mean in just a second. Equals to stars at 0 dot character at I. So what we want to do, first of all, we create a for loop that iterates through the characters of the shortest word, because once in the case where all the words have the same prefix up until the shortest word's length is complete, then we want to just stop our for loop there and return the output, which is going to be our shortest word. So then what we're going to do is we're gonna store in a character variable called current character the character at index I, which is in the first iteration it's 0 of the first word, which is flower. So in other words, in the first iteration, current character is equal to f. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna iterate through the strings of the array to make sure that current character, which is f, is equal to the character at index I of the next words, which in the first iteration, like I said, is 0. So let's go ahead and do that. For int I, or int j actually, equals to 1, remember, so int j is equal to 1, j less than stars dot length, j plus plus. So here in this loop we're iterating through the characters of the shortest word. Here we're iterating through the strings in the array. Okay, so and I started at 1 because I don't want to compare the first word to itself. We're actually gonna check if current character. So if current character is not equal to stars at j dot character at I, then return output. Otherwise, if this manages to get completed, if we check all the words in our array and they all match the current character, then our output, which remember was initially just empty quotations, is going to be equal to stars at 0 dot substring 0 up until I plus 1. And then in the end, we're gonna return output. Okay, so let's explain this through an example. Uh, we'll take example 1 again. So is stars null, or does it have a length of 0? No, so we keep going. We create a string output, which is initially empty quotations, and we're gonna assume that our first string, which is flower, has the shortest length. And now we're actually gonna check if it does have the shortest length, and if it doesn't, update min length to be the length of the shortest word in our array, which is handled by this block of code. Let's go through it real quick. So min length is equal to 6 because that's flower. Is 6 greater than stars at I, which is flow.length? So flow.length is 4. Is 6 greater than 4? No. Or sorry, yes, it is, absolutely. So min length is now going to be equal to flow.length, which is 4. And then we can increment I, so now it's equal to 2, which is less than 3. If min length, which is 4, is greater than stars at 2, which is flight.length, which is 6, which it's not, so never mind. Now flow is equal to 3, and we exit the for loop. And now we have our min length, which is actually flow. Okay, so now we're going to iterate through our characters of our shortest word, which in this example is flow. For int I equals to 0, is 0 less than 4? Absolutely. Our current character is going to be stars at 0 dot character at 0. Stars at 0 is flower, character at 0 of flower is f. So current character is going to be equal to f. Now we're going to iterate through the strings of our array, starting at flow because we don't want to compare flower to itself. If current character, which is f, is not equal to stars at j, so stars at j is 1, character at 0 of stars at j is going to be f. Is f not equal to f? It is, so skip this if block, increment j. J is now equal to 2. Is f equal to stars at 2, which is flight, dot character at 0, which is f? Is f not equal to f? Once again it is. Skip this if block, increment j. But now j is equal to 3, and 3 is not less than 3. So we leave this for loop. Our output, we're going to update it. If you remember, it used to be empty quotations. Output is now going to be stars at 0 dot substring, which returns a substring of our original string based on 2 indexes which we give it, which tells it where we want our substring to begin and where we want it to end. So substring, our output's now going to be substring of flower, which starts at 0, which is f, and ends at I plus 1. What's I plus 1? I started at 0, so 0 plus 1 is 1. Now, what the substring method does is, although it starts at 0, it ends at 1. So it ends at 1, which is here, but it does not include it. So substring at 0 and 1 is just f. Okay? Substring of 0 and 2, this is 0, this is 1, L is 1, and O is 2. So our substring of 0 and 2 is just FL. O is not included. So this index is included, but this index is excluded. Okay, so our output is now f, and we're going to increment I now. So I is equal to 1. Is I less than is 1 less than 4? Yes. Current character is now equal to stars at 0 dot character at 1, which is L. Now we're going to iterate through the strings of our array. If current character is, which is L, is not equal to stars at j, which is 1, which is flow, dot character at I, which is 1. Once again, that's L. Is L not equal to L? It is. Skip this if block, increment j. J is now 2. Now we're checking if L is not equal to stars at 2, which is flight, dot character at 1, which is L. It is. Perfect. leave this if block, increment j, but now j is equal to 3, which 3 is not less than 3, so exit this for loop. And now our output is stars at 0 dot substring 0 to I plus 1. I was 1, so 1 plus 1, that's 2. Remember, dot substring between 0 and 2 is going to return F and L, excluding O. And now we increment I again, so I is now equal to 2. Is 2 less than 4? Absolutely. Current character is now equal to stars at 0, which is flower, dot character at 2, which is O. Now we're iterating through the words of our array. Is O not equal to stars at j, which is 1 dot character at 2? It is. So skip this if block, increment the for loop, increment j within the for loop. J is now equal to 2. So now we're pointing at flight. Is O not equal to flight dot character at index 2, which is I? It's not. So we're returning output. And that's the answer to our, this is where LeetCode or whatever Java just exits everything and returns our output. And in this case, our final output was substring between 0 and 2, which was F and L. Once Java detects the return statement, it's going to stop our code and return this output. It's not going to continue and check for anything else. So let's submit it and see if it worked. So, oh, okay, so small mistake here. I just misspelled it. Let's submit. Alright, perfect. So what I was saying is that as soon as Java detects a return statement within a for loop, wherever it detects the return statement, it's going to immediately stop the code and return this output. So although I was less than min length, even if we incremented it again, it would still be less than min length, and we could go through this code. However, since Java ran into a return statement, it immediately returned this output and stopped the rest of the code. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.